What is going on, everybody? This is Blast Beats with your host, Zachary Nur. Back here for another week. We did it 1 week, back to back, 2 episodes. We're back on a schedule. It's crazy. I am joined, as usual, by our co-hosts. Spooner, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Zach. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. And then we've also got the man himself, Radical Larry. How you doing?
Always wash your hands after handling raw chicken or eggs.
Yes, no salmonella. Never. Please don't please don't spread foodborne pathogens. It'll get it's harder for me to get to work that way. And my boss won't like that. Um yes, so we are back for another week. We made it back to, as I said, back to back weeks. Um and it's just building from here, boys. And it's been an interesting week. It's been a fun week. We've had some announcements that were made shortly before we got the podcast out. However, we made sure that you guys knew what we threw down in the last episode. But if you did not catch the news, Ghost is in fact releasing a new album this year with the release of Wake Up Little Sunshine. Isn't that what it's called?
Call me little sunshine.
Call Me Little Sunshine. Yes, Call Me Little Sunshine. Um, with the release of their new single, which it was a fan. I was a very big fan of it. I did not realize that they were not as heavy on on the uncleans as other, because I've never really gotten into them much at all. Um,
The best descriptor I can have is I saw this on the internet. They're Scooby Doo rock. Think of your
ooh,
Scooby Doo cutscenes, throw some Ghost. Perfect blend.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a pretty good summation of them, and I'm a fan. I've liked everything that I've heard from them. I've seen them in concert once. I'm gonna try to check them out in a couple of weeks, or I guess next week, um, at their show in Minneapolis. So I'm excited for the new album.
So
I, I'm I can't talk. I'm jacked as hell. I wasn't always into Ghost. I think because I had some sort of expectation with the imagery translating to the sound, and I think Square Hammer was my first introduction. I just wasn't feeling it, but then I don't know what it was. I think it was when they came out with Rats on their album Prequel. I was hooked, and I was like, "Oh, this is just catchy. It's awesome. It's fun." And then ever since then, I've just loved all of it, including Square Hammer.
yeah, so they're just like lighter in the vocals version of Black Veil Brides. Like
I don't know if I'll go there.
old Black Veil Brides, old Black Veil Brides, not new Black Veil Brides, because like back when they were like knives and pens and stuff like that, like not the same, not the same now. Now I can't listen to Black Veil Brides anymore. Um, but yeah, no, that obviously that was a joke. I'm not serious. Those are two very different bands and two very different categories. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what they're because I mean I've posed this to a lot of my friends, and I think I've posed this to you guys. But the past 2 years, if you haven't put something out as a content creator, you have set yourself behind in your project or your band or your like yourself as an artist behind massively, because to an extent you just had 2 years to plan something, get something to fruition, build it, and attempt to put something out. Obviously, if you were just starting when this all started out, I'm not counting you in that situation, because it was a lot harder to get funds. But I'm talking about bands like we saw a Day to Remember release. We are seeing Slipknot getting ready to release. Um, who else? I mean, just Every Time I Die. All these very, very, very top tier bands. That's why I'm so pissed. I was so pissed last week when we were talking about Pierce the Veil, because like you've had more time than that and you still haven't released anything. COVID was the perfect time to get something down on paper, because you couldn't travel, you couldn't tour.
Trivia
You were
made
forced
two
to do
albums in that time.
Exactly.
exactly. You needed to put content out during this span, because there was never a better opportunity to get people together in quarantine. You could decide at the beginning of some sort of like time period that you're like, all right, we're all going to go into this one house, and we're all going to all be in this house together. We have everything we need. Nobody can come in and out, and then that would be fine. It doesn't matter that like you're not related. If you set like a quarantine like colony or whatever. Like it's just a group of people that works. And you have the ability to do that. You had the ability to do that. So it'll be interesting to see who else is going to catch that last final wave of those releases as we go into 2022. Because, I mean, with When We Were Young now going to 3 days, with all of these other festivals and stuff coming back in full force, I do think we're going to see a very, very big kickback into touring as we were before COVID. I don't necessarily know how that's going to work with all the restrictions in different areas. That's going to be uh, fun for them to figure out. But I do think we might go back to kind of a gap between releases and bigger gaps between content, which is kind of stinks. But it was just the perfect storm for people to just be like, yo, we're gonna just pepper everybody with content and what we can do and get together and release. And it'll be interesting to see what happens from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of an interesting point, with COVID and how much time it gave everybody to sit down and write songs, record songs, come up with an album, and then finally be able to release that album. We saw a flurry of activity in 2021. We're probably going to see another flurry of activity, in spring, summer of 2022. Kind of makes me wonder if we're going to get, you know, a pretty dead year in 2023 with, if things lighten up here and we can get back to, some sort of normalcy, if those bands will go back to their, 2, 3, 4 year cycle between albums, we could be in for a pretty dead 2023.
I do think we just had a pretty big surge of, like the titans of the genre releasing albums between, Lamb of God, Slipknot, Cannibal Corpse, all these mainstay bands releasing albums. Um, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a lull, considering things. I would expect because like Parkway Drive, they've been sitting on nothing for a couple years now since Revenant. So
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm
they make
saying.
yeah, they make money. They make money through their tours, and they're gonna it would make sense to have them something to promote on the tour.
Especially as an Australian band at that point too, because I mean,
They've
you want
been
to talk about
clamped.
restrictions. Yeah, you want to talk about restrictions. I mean, they are no nonsense down in Australia and New Zealand. Um, but like I said, it's going to be very interesting. I mean, this does open up the opportunity for the new band, the bands that want to get into certain genres where there isn't something necessarily releasing, and they can be like, "Hey, check us out. You like these bands? Well, guess what? We have somewhat of a similar sound. Why don't you check us out?" Which I've actually, I mean, hell, this runs us into our very very next topic, which is how I discover new music. Because I was on Twitter the other day, and Larry had tweeted out a picture. I wanted to see if I could find it because I didn't have it up. I was getting ready to look it up. Um,
I've got it right now.
Boom. Yes. Um, what did it say?
So it was a list of 20 prompts, music related, favorite band, favorite song. It was like the old MySpace,
Ah,
like
yes.
my status, give me a number and I'll tell you what I think type deal. People will just reply to you their number and you answer the prompt. For example, I got number 19, favorite lyrics. And then the other one was number 15, a band or artist you recently discovered, stuff like that.
Yes. So I looked through it, and because those things have a lot of really cool questions. Then because I was actually talking to my coworker last night that I'm getting ready to move in with, and he wants to start a podcast with me as well. We've always talked about this because we are both very, very, very into hip hop. Um, and just like a kind of more of like a life podcast as well. Um, Although we go very into life on this, we do. Um, so I was looking at it, and one on there that really struck my interest was number 17. Do you still listen to the radio? And I think that's a very, very, very interesting question in this day and age. And I will pose it to you guys first because I kind of spilled a little bit of my explanation earlier, and I wanted to keep it back a bit. But yeah, do you guys still listen to the radio at all?
I I do occasionally, but not nearly as much as I used to when I was, in my, childhood or my teen years. Back when I was growing up, the radio was always on. Yeah, I had it on when I was going to sleep, when I woke up, in the shower, just pretty much any time there wasn't conversation going on between family, the radio was playing. So radio was a big thing for me growing up. And now it's kind of transitioned into, Spotify or YouTube. But if I'm in the car, I'm listening to the radio. And occasionally if I'm, you know, not really feeling my Spotify or just want something different, I'll throw on, the local rock stations here. Shout out to Rock 108 and Laser 1033 out in Des Moines. Um, so yeah, I will occasionally throw it on, but it's not nearly as big of a thing for me as it used to be.
So my question when it comes to Spotify, because I don't use Spotify, I use Apple Music. I don't know if I don't. Okay, yes,
Yes.
yes, I'm not alone. Yes, yes, Apple Music represent in this podcast. Um, anyways, um, so do you utilize like any of their kind of sort of like radio features on there? How they build playlists for people to listen to, and stuff like that.
I don't actually.
Not okay.
I've never listened to their, this is metal or
Okay,
any of their curated playlists. I just throw on
okay,
my 700 song playlist and let it shuffle.
all right,
Now,
okay.
I would use their playlist feature. Like in the early days, trying to get into other genres like their extreme metal. There's which the more you get, to realize it's kind of like the bare bones of the genres. So I would like kind of go check out the genre specific playlists and just kind of see what the bare bones were.
Okay. Yeah. Um. All right. So, Larry, do
Yeah,
you listen to the radio still?
every day. Satellite radio.
That does
I
count. That does count.
Yes. I think SiriusXM has two of the best radio stations in the world for the genres 37 Octane and Channel 40 Liquid Metal.
Yep.
Octane is your hard rocks. You're from Ashes to New. Your Atreyus. Those types of Papa Roach, like Five Finger Death Punch. Those are like the staple bands for there. Your hard rock, your radio metal, stuff like that. And then Liquid Metal is metal. It is metal across the globe. It's thrash. It's everything from death metal to deathcore to thrash metal. It's everything, and it's the good stuff. And I listen to it every day, primarily for the DJs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think if you're on Twitter, if you know this already, I think Jose Mangan is as good of an ambassador for this music as anyone could possibly hope for. I think he is amazing. I love listening to him. I love listening to Grant Random, Sean the Butcher. I gravitate strictly to those guys sometimes. If I know, like, oh, these guys are on right now, I want to listen to them, I'll throw on the radio. And more importantly, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central on Liquid Metal, they have Into the Trivia Pit, which is solely responsible for me getting into the heavier side of the music. So I wouldn't be here without the radio still.
So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the channel list on Sirius XM because also we say Sirius XM. You guys remember the days when it was just Sirius and XM, right?
XM,
Hmm.
yep.
Yeah. That's kind of wild to me. Um, we were having a light conversation before we started recording. Guess who has a channel on Sirius? Pearl Jam.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Pearl Jam 24/7, baby. Pearl Jam Radio. Which is very funny. Yeah, so that is one thing that is very interesting is I don't have a Sirius XM subscription, so I don't listen to Sirius Radio. I do not listen to the radio whatsoever, and I have not listened to the radio besides being randomly in somebody else's car for the better part of like 5 to 6 years. Um, and not only does that include when I'm in my lonesome, that includes when I was broadcasting radio. I was not listening to radio when I was broadcasting radio. And it's just I've kind of broken part of it now with my recent obsession with listening to podcasts with my hearing issues that have come about. Um, and it's just going back and listening to people talk. I don't like it was something before where I'm like, I don't really care. I don't like whatever. Like I'll just listen to the songs. I don't need you to like freaking mix it in with the end of your 15 or your 5 minute spiel at the bottom of the hour. Like I'll just find it on my own. And what's interesting about what you were saying, Larry, about the playlists is I won't listen to them, but I use Apple Music's playlists to find new stuff that I didn't know about
Hmm.
from artists that I missed because like I go in these weird like genre waves where I go super heavy on a certain genre for about like a couple days or a couple weeks, and then I go into another one and
Yeah.
I go really heavy for a couple weeks, and I miss. I did this in college for like years at a time, and so like I miss like chunks of discographies from different bands that I was just like, oh no, that's not good. That I missed a classic there. Um, so I use all of that. I mean, the way that Apple Music I feel has it set up is really easy to discover new music because you can go to the bottom of any artist and then go to like similar artists and then it takes you to their
Yep.
similar artists and then you go to similar artists from there and it shows you your top 5, 10, 15, 20 songs and essential albums. If you go to Metallica, it has all of them to the Black Album. It doesn't have anything after and it's kind of correct. Um, and like there's just so many things that they've done that but then the problem is you get to the end of the year and they haven't done anything about the stupid rap situation and we are sitting here looking like idiots
No, we got
and
one.
well they just kind of fixed it this year with the way but it's still not as easy. It's not as
No,
easy. You have to it's so complicated. I have to go and log in online. I can't access that from my phone. Like it
I
only
think you
gave
can.
it only gave me a very 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 limited selection for what it showed me on my phone. I couldn't get like all of the artists that I had listened to and how many on my phone. It only gave me
Yeah,
a specific subset.
it's definitely not as polished as Spotify's.
It's not as user friendly. And what is Apple based on? The artist. Get it right. Come on, Apple. So yeah, I don't listen to the radio. Now, as you said, I think it would be a different situation if we were talking that I had a subscription to Sirius XM because, as you said, Octane's fantastic. Um, there's far more because I mean,
There's Turbo. There's Ozzy's Boneyard.
Ozzy's Boneyard, yeah. First Wave, um, the Lithium,
Hmm.
um, freaking Hair Nation. If you're into the '80s, um,
I
like
really think it's worth it. And they've got other
yeah.
like subs on the app. They've got, like Liquid Metal Workout, Octane, stuff like that, like the
Oh yeah,
subsets.
I'm not. A lot of my family has it because like up at the top. Um, oh, did they change the name of it? They did. But Deep Tracks, Classic Vinyl, Classic Rewind. Like as everybody on the around these parts knows, I'm not metal exclusive here. I'm a very big fan of rock and classic rock and pop punk, and I get very very deep and dirty into those genres as well. So I'm very very familiar with classic vinyl on Sirius XM because I own a lot of classic vinyl.
Yeah, I
So
miss the days when I had a Sirius XM subscription. I had
well,
one
they
for a
used to
couple of
come when you
years.
bought cars.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what it was. We had got a new car, and that car had a Sirius XM subscription. So I could listen to Liquid Metal, I could listen to Octane, I could listen to the Boneyard, and that was great. I loved it, and Sirius XM is great. I don't have a subscription anymore, so I can't listen to it.
Is that a model dealership thing, or is that like and like does like CarMax have the hookup with Sirius XM, or is it just like if you buy a new car or a used car from like a Honda dealership?
I
I think it's standard for a lot of dealerships.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
was wondering because I was like, who in this economy can afford to go and buy a car straight from the dealer? I know I can't. But because like I don't have Sirius, so I bought it from my aunt. I bought my car from my aunt. Um, I've actually gotten both cars I've owned in my life from my aunt. This one was substantially more expensive, but that's what happens when you have 6 years, 7 years in between buying a car and you're not 16 anymore. They're like, yeah, no, you can pay for this now. It's time to be an adult. Um, but yeah, uh, but even back when I had my Infinity, because I have Bluetooth capabilities in my car now, which is the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I don't listen to the radio, and probably the biggest reason, is for 2 years I did not have a radio in my car. I had nothing.
That would drive me crazy. I can't just sit in silence like that.
Oh, no, 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 no! I did not sit in silence. I brought every freaking
About the JBL.
basically. I didn't own a JBL, but I think one was called a Sound Freak. And it was like flat, and then when you turned it on, you pulled the back out,
Mm,
and it like supplied extra bass. I wore that thing out, out. It was dead by the time that it like we got 2.5 years into this, or not 2.5, like half year into this, and it was like I had to constantly keep it on the charger. Um, a couple of like little $5 ones from Five Below that my dad had bought for my sisters that I conveniently just kind of like plucked, and nobody noticed. Um, but yeah, no, I made sure I had music capable. I've learned the capabilities of speakers. Always go, friendly tip for everybody in the audience, when you're setting the volume settings, when you're like setting it on your phone for the speaker, go put it all the way up before don't press play. Before you press play, do not press play. Go all the way up and then take it one notch down. And then from there, you can use the device any way you want, and it will not sound distorted, but it'll be at the maximum volume that you can put from your phone. And trust me, it works. Trust me.
good little tidbit.
Good little tidbit. I've had to do this for a very, very, very long time. Now, it was not something that inherently was wrong with the system. Like, I had a radio in my car, the motherboard in the middle, where the AC unit and all that shit is, like, just decided to stop
Mm,
working conveniently after the recall for that expired.
of course,
And
of course.
my aunt and uncle never took the car in because it was never a problem. And they gave it to me, and then it became a problem. Now, not only did it destroy the radio, it made my AC and heating functions inoperable.
Oh,
Let me tell you, the first night this happened, I was coming home from a swim meet. Swim season, by the way, in Virginia in high schools is in the middle of the winter.
yep.
It sucks. We come home. We get the bus home. Actually, no, no, no. It was a home meet. So we were parked outside, and we would go to IHOP after the games. We drove with a friend to IHOP. We went back to the pool to get my car. It was so cold that my window had frosted over, and my AC was inoperable. So my sister and I had to sit there with our hands for about an hour, and for not like an hour, but like 30 minutes, and just place them on the outside of my or on the inside of my window to melt the ice, or the frost, so we could see and get home. It was
Oh boy.
ridiculous. It was
Oh man,
ridiculous.
that brings back
Struggle.
memories that I didn't know I had.
That and we're in Virginia. We're in Virginia. Now, granted, it wasn't a Virginia problem. It was my car was janky as anything problem. So, although it was a really nice car, it was an Infinity. It was a nice car. Just one slight little issue.
Yeah, slight.
So yeah. Anyways, do you still listen to the radio? No. Yes. No. Well, no. Sometimes yes and no. Um, and it's something very interesting. The one point I was about to make before we went on, because I didn't want to um, spoil any more. I just remembered, and it was something that you brought up, Spoon. And what was the radio station that you have in Des Moines?
The Des Moines is Laser 103.3.
All right, and that's a city. Des Moines is a city.
Mm-hmm.
I do not live near a city. I live strictly in the suburbs. the radio stations, I won't say suck. There's a good one, 95.9. Respect Dave Adler. He's the dude. Um, but besides that, the rest of the freaking radio stations around here suck. We get one from Richmond. I'm not a fan of it. 96.9. And I think that's my issue. And I was talking to my coworker because, as I said, we're very big hip hop fans. And when you're looking on hip hop Twitter and you see all these videos from these radio stations from like New York and Los Angeles, Hot 97, and all these really big radio stations, I'm sitting here and I'm like, we have nothing like that around here.
Hmm.
They're playing pop artists 9 times out of 10. I'm tired of hearing Ariana Grande. I'm tired of hearing Billie Eilish. I'm tired of hearing Imagine Dragons. I'm like, and that's all that plays. So, like, part of my issue with the radio is just the radio stations around me, the general consensus are not great. So, when you're in an area that does have good radio stations, it does get that factor to where, like, my if my Bluetooth decided not to connect right one day and the radio came on and a good song came on, I might be like, ooh, okay, I'll listen to this and then maybe listen to the radio. But no, it doesn't happen because it's all crap. It's all country stations and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a similar issue out here living in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. If I want to listen to local radio, it's 107.9, Rock 108 in Cedar Rapids, or there's another rock station. I think it's 94.1 KRNA. Those are the two rock stations around me. Um, so there's very limited selection, and both of them have a pretty limited kind of rotation of songs and artists that they play. So if I'm listening to the
Mhm.
radio for more than 2 or 3 days, I'm hearing the same songs 20, 30 times over the course of 3 days. That's so at that point it's just like, why don't I just throw on my Spotify?
Yeah, what's
Yep.
the radio station quality outside of Sirius and satellite where you are, Larry?
So we used to have a couple really good stations. I'm in Appleton, 30 minutes from Green Bay, and we had 105.7 WAPL. That's the premier classic rock station. And when I was about 10 years old, this was the station. In terms of terrestrial radio, it got fairly heavy. It would play, some Metallica, the Good Sabbath, things of that nature. Now it had too much wattage. It dominated the other competitive station, which was 93.5, which played a combination of both like Ozzy's Boneyard and Octane. So it was the best of both worlds. It was outstanding. But they dominated it so much that 93.5 reformatted. And then 105.7 has a sister station, 94.7 The Razor, which is basically terrestrial radio's version of Octane. So,
Okay.
it's your new hard rock, but as Spoon said, it's the same 10 songs reshuffled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's, I mean, so as I said, I worked in radio. Well, I say worked. I volunteered in radio. That's a better way to put it. I was a DJ for 5.5 or 4.5 years. Yeah, 4.5 years at Virginia Tech's college radio station, WUVT 90.7. Whoop whoop. Um, honestly the best extracurricular activity I ever found at Virginia Tech. And I mean, look at me. I am currently co-hosting a metal podcast. Clearly, I have an affinity for music, and it was awesome. Um, it's very interesting because we were reaching out to labels to ask them to send us stuff, not necessarily partnering. But when you get up to that, because we were all nonprofit and all that stuff, so like we didn't necessarily have the same angle as I 1065 the Bear. I think that's what the big one out there was called. But Woovitz, and that's what they call it, Woovit. Um, their prerogative was to play all the music that did not get played on the radio, the like everyday radio. I actually got in trouble multiple times early on because I played like Linkin Park, like very 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 popular Linkin Park, and they're like, "Yo, that's top 40. You can't do that. Like you can't. That would be on." the same station that we're trying to compete against. That's not what we do. And I was like, okay, I understand. I played Don't Stop Believing once, and they were like, yeah, outside of Radiothon, which is our semesterly annual fundraiser, or our semesterly fundraiser that we do to raise money to get uh, funds and upgrade equipment because we don't get any funding from the university. Um, we can do all planned shows, and I did some fantastic theme shows. I had a great time planning those out. But no, it's really interesting. So that's where you get into the money aspect, to where these other radio stations that we're listening to that are actually paying people and all this. Yes, it's advertising because I did advertising while I was at Move It, but it's also the labels sending them songs and they're like, hey, you're playing this a specific amount of times in the day and we're going to slide you some money, but we
Yeah.
need this promotion. So unfortunately, that's where I was going to say Spoon and Larry. I don't know how active the colleges are around you, but I would encourage you to look around and see if they have some college radio stations because they're very actually underrated. And the programming is honestly sometimes second to none because it's people that are actually just putting their time in and not getting any sort of like, it's like when we were working for PFN at the beginning,
Hmm.
or working at ATB right now. We're putting it in for the love of the game. We're making it. We're trying to build it into something more. That's what I honestly what I was doing at Move It is I was putting the groundwork in to maybe after I got out of college I could be like, hey, I have experience here. You guys want to bring me on for a little bit? That'd be a really cool job. Thanks. But yeah, I would definitely look at, especially in Iowa, you might find some very surprising metal programming because even in Blacksburg, Virginia, there were some metal gods at WUVT ruling the late night boards and going ham, just going absolutely ham.
I'll have to look into that. I know there's a, or at least there was. I don't know if there still is, but there was a radio station at the college in the town that I live in right now. My alma mater, I guess you would say, even though I didn't graduate. Um,
Yeah.
that I actually did. One of my friends had a show one of the years that I was there, and I hopped on with him a few times. So I know that they had a radio station. I don't know if they still do. But they weren't real into the metal. Like I copped a few metal CDs from them, but it wasn't much
Mhm.
in their repertoire. But I'll have to look into that.
And also, depending on the station, I don't necessarily know how many of them all went to Virginia Tech and how many of them were also Blacksburg locals. But some of them will actually get down with the locals and be like, yeah, I mean, if you want to train and stuff, come on, do a show. I want, like, there were a lot of people that were still there that were alumni that have just continued to live in Blacksburg and continue to do it. And they've been doing it for like 20, 30, 40 years. Um, it's crazy. Like, well, and Move It, It's one of the oldest radio stations in the United States, college radio stations in the United States. And actually, as sad as this is, um, one of the victims of the Virginia Tech shooting was involved with Woovit, and that is the only reason why they are still functioning as a radio station because a company that I think they needed a transformer or something to keep them running at full power, and a company saw that they had somebody that was involved with the radio station that died in the shooting, and they donated an entire transformer to the radio station to keep them and put them running at full capacity, well
Wow.
beyond what they were beforehand. Yeah. So as sad as it was to lose him and all that, it did end up like with the way that these things do work out in the end. Um, they lay the groundwork for some other things to happen as unfortunate as those circumstances are with legislation changes. Actually, that the shooting changed the way that the police completely viewed these kind of situations in Blacksburg as a whole, because they dropped the ball massively when that happened. And now the police presence, and it's not a bad police presence. It's actually a very interesting police presence because I've been to a few parties when I was at college with the police actively around, and they'll look at you and they're like, look, we completely understand that most of the people here are underage. As long as people aren't dying, we don't care. As long as people aren't actively getting hurt and like egregiously hurt and you're not acting like idiots, we don't care. we're just here to protect people. That's all. And like, and that's what it became after that, because like I said, they didn't take the threat seriously of what actively was going on with the shooting. They were like, no way, there's no way that's happening. And delayed response, far worse than it had to be. But yes, the only reason I bring that up, because they announced the spring football game is going to be either the day after or the day of the 15th anniversary
Mm,
this year. So, alumni. It's always on the Twitter TL. I think it's actually a great way to honor it because of how important football is to Virginia Tech
yeah.
and the response after at the first game after the shooting. However, there's people all over it that are like, "Oh no, this is so disrespectful." I'm like, guys, this is like bread and butter of what we've been doing for the greater part of 25 to 29 years here. Like, we're on the map because of football, and it's built like we've become a national name partially because of our entrance. Like, come on,
Yeah.
come on, let us have some fun. It's like, I think it's one of the best ways that you can, as a college that's super into sports. But anyways, um let's move on to some new music that came out, because I will sit here and say I listened to two songs, and we've already covered one. The other one was by
Zeal.
Zeal and Arbor, because I just threw stuff on before we were listening. Church Burns by Zeal and Ardor, and Call Me Little Sunshine by Ghost. Love them both. I'm going to listen to more over the coming days because I work overnight tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, Spoon, Larry, take it away with what you guys have been listening to this week.
Go ahead,
Hit a
Larry.
Spoon.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Fine. Shit. Fuck you, Spoon. First things first.
On the
Busy
roller.
week. Busy week of listening to tunes. I'm on record saying I listened to 8 new records. I'll only talk about a couple of them. First one, not necessarily metal, more of alternative punk. Billy Talent, Crisis of Faith. If you have a background, if you were a skater kid like me, Billy Talent was your soundtrack growing up. A little bit of a hiatus. This album was incredible. I've got it at number 3 on my list already for Album of the Year rankings. I think it's got awesome hooks, awesome riffs, classic Billy Talent songs. I'm so happy that this far along in their career, they're making great music. I think that they're like bands like Bad Flower and Ghost, where they just know how to write a catchy song, a genuine catchy song. It's not something that like, oh, we've got our radio formula. You know, it's just so, it makes me so friggin' happy that it was such a good record. I'm just happy about it. Um, Second one, Zach, I want you to check this one out because I feel like this would be up your alley. It's by a band called SOM, The Shape of
Yes,
Everything.
yes, I do want to check this out.
Yes, The Shape of Everything. I've got this as a new genre. I'm calling it vibes metal, brah.
Okay, okay.
I've talked about this record with a few people on Twitter. This is the perfect record for you to light some candles, pour yourself a drink of your choice, maybe a scotch, maybe an iced tea, maybe draw yourself a bubble bath and just float. It is awesome. It's great ambient metal. I didn't know they had that. I friggin' love it. It is awesome.
Or alternatively, it's the best album to throw on when you're 8 back in the deli and need something to appease your mind and
It's
calm you down
it's
Yeah.
deli tunes.
and focus on the music.
It's relaxing deli tunes.
The music keeps you going.
I want to be fair because I just want to be like singing praises. I listened to Druid Lord. It's a doom metal record. I was not a fan. I don't know if I like doom metal. It was slow. It was boring. The vocals are weak. It's just not for me. If it's for you, if you love your doom metal, I recommend it. But
Yeah,
I think I'm good for that for now.
that's always my problem. I always doom metal and like progressive metal are kind of those two genres where I'm always trying to convince myself I haven't liked it in the past, but maybe this time, maybe this record will be the one that gets me into it, and it just never is. You know,
It's just
outside of a couple prog bands, there's not much prog metal that I like, and I haven't found any doom that I like. It's just not for me.
oh, the last one I want to bring up. It was a recommendation by James Kempers. one of the big metal Twitter pages. Let me just make sure I get it right. Right now, his name's currently What the James Holes, homage to the Fit for an Autopsy album.
Mm-hmm.
But at Campires on Twitter, he recommended I check out Confess.
Mm-hmm. I checked. That was one of the ones that I checked out too.
Okay, then perfect. Then I'll just transition it over to you.
Yeah. So Confess. That was a really. I thought it was a really really good album. They're in Iranian, I believe.
Yep.
Kind of groove metal, thrash metal type of band. Um, Actually got in trouble with the Iranian government and had to immigrate to Norway as like political refugees because of the music that they made. The Iranian government deemed it as blasphemous. Um, but
Oh,
it was a really good album, I
Always a
thought.
good sign.
Yeah,
I agree.
the name of it is Revenge at All Costs. Um, I thought it was really good. It kind of gave me a lot of flashbacks to kind of um, like the LD50 era of Mudvayne and kind of early Slipknot and a little bit of old school Union Underground. If anybody listened to An Education in Rebellion when that came out, kind of gave me a lot of those vibes. I wasn't I wasn't feeling it enough to say that it was, great or, an album of the year contender, but it was really solid.
I agree. I've got those same feelings. Now, I'm worried that this is just a fault of my own, but every time I hear like some hardcore vibes, I always end up throwing it back to Hatebreed. I'm like, oh, I hear some, Hatebreed sounds. Got some Jamie Jost like vocals. But I'm not saying that's what I got from this. I just a couple songs on the album. That's what it made me go back to. Some old Sepultura, got that from that. But I just thought it was like what you said, just a damn solid record.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, nothing groundbreaking, nothing that blew me away, but it was really solid. I really enjoyed it. I gave it like a 7.5 out of 10. It was really solid. If that kind of groove metal, kind of thrashy hardcore thing is your vibe, go check it out. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
speaking of groove metal, before we move on to the next album that you were going to talk about, I do want to say, um, when we ended last episode, Larry, you gave me a recommendation of Anthrax, talking about
Yes.
thrash and groove metal. Um, Fantastic, both songs. Freaking loved it. I went and picked up my friend that night, and we went to the bar, and I took him to the bar, and I queued it up again after I drove to his house and listened to it, and took him back, and we went out downtown and listened to it. And he was like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty good." And I was like, "Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good."
For those that don't remember, that was
Fantastic.
John Bush, Anthrax, two songs, Only from the Sound of White Noise, and then Nobody Knows Anything.
Only was, oh my gosh.
Oh, that's
Only
an
was
anthem.
incredible.
That's an anthem.
But anyways, continue with the new music. That's what I would like to call a new to me music. That was like last year when we did the Metallica episode. Ride the Lightning was probably one of the best pieces of new to me music that I listened to last
Mhm.
year. Not that it's new music, but I never listened to it,
Right.
so it's new to me. But yeah,
So yeah, the other thing that I listened to that I kind of wanted to highlight is another, I believe they're Iranian band called Artemini. They had an album called Ziggurat that dropped, and it's kind of in the heavy metal kind of classic heavy metal vibes. Um, and it was one of those records where I'm going to be looking to see what they put out in the future, because this was one of those records for me that kind of gave me the same vibes as the first Trivium record did. Not musically, but in the sense that the bones are here. I don't necessarily really dig what I'm hearing, but I can tell that there's a foundation there where if they kind of explore it a bit more and kind of get more footing under them, they can come out with something really, really good. And that's what Trivium did with the Crusades and Shogun. So I'm going to be looking for Artemini in the future to see if they can kind of expand upon Ziggurat and kind of push the boundaries of what they put out on there and kind of evolve it into something that I am really going to dig, because it was good. It was all right. It was good. It was kind of like a 5.5, 6 for me out of 10. Uh, but I could tell that there's something there that I hope they can tap into and reach that potential.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, all great stuff coming out. Something interesting that I saw that is coming up soon, and let me have it load back up because I scrolled down. Coming out on March 25th. I believe Architects released For Those That Wish to Exist last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are releasing For Those Who Wish to Exist, or That Wish to Exist, at Abbey Road. So it sounds like a live album.
Yeah.
I think it's with the orchestra.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah. They
interesting.
released a version of what's the
Animals.
yes, thank you,
Animals.
Animals from that session. That is really really good. So
So
I'm
before
looking
we
forward to
hop,
see what that album has in store for us.
yeah. So the other night, I was on my Apple Music and I was sifting through artists that I normally keep my eyes on to see if I miss any releases, any singles, any projects. Um, and before the show, before we started recording, I was going through all the labels that I normally check up on, and let me tell you, Epitaph has it down like fantastic. They have all of their upcoming releases on their calendar, unlike any other label that I follow. None of them have anything that is coming to be released. They only have stuff that has been released. So if you go to Pure Noise, you would not know. Next week, not this week, not tomorrow, next week, February 4th, Knuckle Puck has an EP coming out that I'm very excited for because they released a fantastic album in 2020 called 2020. Um, it actually has nothing to do with the coronavirus or COVID. They were intending on doing that before all of this happened, because it's not like 2020 the year, it's like 2020 vision.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so fantastic. Yeah, it's something I don't have and haven't had for my entire life.
Same.
Um,
Same.
it's actually horrific. People put my glasses on and they go, "Oh my god, are you blind?" No, I can actually see without them. What? Yeah, I know. So yeah, I'm very excited for that because that last album that they released was quality. Honestly, the mainstays in pop punk and sad boy pop over the past like 3 4 5 years have been on a level of none other. And I'm thinking like State Champs, the story so far, Knuckle Puck. I don't Mayday Parade is a bit more poppy than I say punky. And I don't necessarily like they're really hard to place and I don't know how to place them because they're very unique on their own. Like they're Warped Tour mainstays, but they're not pop punk.
Mm-hmm.
They're a bit too soft for pop punk, in my opinion, in my subtle opinion. But yeah, I'm excited for the new Knuckle Puck EP. It's gonna be good.
Is there anything coming up next week, February 4th, that you're looking forward to, Larry?
Not next week, but tomorrow. Last 10 Seconds of Life. New album.
Ooh.
Pumped for that one. I'm kind of a newer fan for Last 10 Seconds of Life, but I was hooked ever since my girlfriend showed me the song Little Black Lines. So I want to get the new album.
By the way, not metal news, but everybody be ready for the news that is going to dominate the music sphere for the next month and a half because I know it's not releasing when it's supposed to. Kanye announced that Donda 2 is supposedly coming out, executive produced by Future. So he's just gonna blow the hype for this one completely higher out of the water than it was for the first one, and I'm not ready for it because it's gonna be stupidity on Twitter for the next month and a half because and we all have to sit here and say from the start it's not going to come out on time, so don't be fucking surprised when we're sitting here on the release date and we're like, huh, where did it go? Kanye West has never released an album on time. Stop expecting him to. All right, we're done with that. I'm just saying it's going to dominate the conversation in the Twitter timeline for the next month and a half because everybody's gonna be like, "Oh my god, he got Future, the executive producer. This is crazy. Oh my god!" And it's gonna be like, "All right, yes, I like Donda, but like, it wasn't even the best album of the year last year in hip hop. Shut up." Yes,
So I'm
it's
going to go back to your original question. February 4th, actually, yes. Korn's new album, Requiem's coming out.
Oh, new Corn. That's right. The
I'm a,
2020, 2020, the 2022, the year of new metal.
I am a slut for Korn, so I am very excited for this.
Oh, yes.
Especially since their last album, I thought they had one of the most beautiful songs, and I said beautiful songs that a new metal band could ever make. Can You Hear Me?
Mhm.
I swear to God, I can't. I listen to that song a minimum 3 times in a row when I hear it. So I got the itch. I've got Korn fever, baby.
I've loved this new metal resurgence this year of all the bands announcing. I want that to be the move this year.
Yeah.
So that's
although
February 4th.
ICP can stay away.
Fair. That's fair.
They don't have to. They have too much like relation to the DMV area for I don't know where they're from.
Michigan. Detroit 313.
They for some reason they are constantly around the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, and I'm just like I hear about them in this area, and I'm just like I'm not comfortable with that. Stay away, go back.
Detroit, baby.
Hey,
In this house, Detroit.
They taking kneecaps out here. Dan Campbell, may God love his soul. I wish he was the coach of the Miami Dolphins. But it's okay. By the next time we record this, hopefully Mike McDaniel's the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins.
Hopefully.
Although I'm not necessarily opposed to who was the big talk today that
Dable.
everybody was talking about? Dable. I'm not opposed to Dable.
I'm not either. Depending on if what's reported as his staff coming with him is going to come with him, then I'm okay with that hire.
Yeah. I just don't want Vance Joseph. I'm sorry. I'm not interested. He was already with Miami. Why run it back again?
Yeah, I feel you there.
And it's not like his first venture as a head coach went that great either.
True.
But I'm not going to sit here and act like coaching in Denver is the easiest thing in the world. But anyways, this has been, is there anything you guys wanted to add on to the end of this episode? We've gone about like 52 minutes.
Yeah, there was just a couple of records coming up.
Yeah, what are you looking forward
to,
Spoon? We didn't even get to you. My apologies.
It's all good.
I can't believe
on tangents left and right.
Hey, you should ask my coworkers. A slight funny story before we go on a Spoon. I had a coworker come up to me and she was like, "Zach, somebody came up and told me that you used to weigh 300 pounds and that you lost 150 pounds. And that's why you bounce off the walls like you do." And I'm like, what does weight loss and bouncing off the walls have anything to do with each other? 1, 2, no, I've never weighed more than 150 pounds in my life. I'm sorry. Someone's lying to you. I'm sorry. But anyways, what are you looking forward to in this coming couple weeks, Spoon?
Yeah, there's nothing coming out tomorrow that really has piqued my interest, but there are 3 albums coming out the next week, February 4th, that I'm really looking forward to. One is the Korn album that Larry mentioned. Really stoked for that. The other 2 are from Venom Prison, called Erebos, I think is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
They're a death metal outfit from the UK. I'm really looking forward to listening to that. They kind of take the death metal genre and have been pushing it to different kind of musical areas that I have found really interesting. So I'm really, really interested to see what that full album sounds like, and where they continue their progression. And then the other one is kind of a, I guess, mathcore is the genre. Uh, Ro-
Yeah, yeah.
Rollo Tomasi. I'm really interested in that album. I've heard a few of their songs, and mathcore isn't generally my vibe, but I've really enjoyed
What
a few of their
Little
things.
techie.
what is mathcore?
It like Larry just said, it's a little techy. It's got, it's got the classic kind of metalcore sort of underpinnings, but there's a lot of technical
I
prowess in it.
It's
There's
with
a
see.
lot of time
plan
signature
Oh,
changes.
wait. You mean technical as in like guitar play,
and
not
drums and
Yeah,
everything.
okay. You don't mean technical as in EDM.
It's like
no,
jazz. It's
Okay,
like real jazz in a
so
way.
you don't mean like I see stars.
No, it's
Okay,
like
okay.
no,
Dillinger
I
Escape Plan.
I was
yeah,
thinking like technical as like in like insertion of like EDM influences, not
Oh
like
no,
oh
no, no.
no.
technical as in okay. Gotcha. Um yeah, I also wanted to point out this is now the time that we are going to see hella album announcements, which means we
Yes.
have no idea what's coming out from week to week. We can get massive songs being dropped at any moment. The new year is in full swing. Right now, I mean, if you're a band like Ice Nine Kills and you need a 2.5 month roll up, you can announce something right now, and we still won't have it until the middle of the year. So, like, just be ready because they're going to be. I mean, that and to be honest, that's not even that bad of a release schedule. 2.5 months is nothing. There's been far worse in the
Hmm.
grand scheme of things. So yeah, this is the time when we start to. We're at the end of January, so February's here, which means, I mean, I don't. I feel like there's very few bands in the metal industry that have the capabilities of pulling a. And my most recent example is Two Chains of like just not being in the game for a little bit with any real releases and just being like, hey, it's been a while. I'm gonna release something this month. See you guys later. Like I feel like they need like a lot of more metal bands need to generate that promotion to get like their
Yeah.
album sales to make sure, because I mean, I've been around Warped Tour, and I'm the fact that you have the bands at their merch tents after their performances, that tells you something. That tells you where like their money comes from and what it's like. They need to get the sales for their shit. So like it's I don't see many being a. I think Slipknot might do it. I definitely think they might be very quiet outside of Chapeltown Rag, and like just maybe like release one other song and not really give any sort of hint. Maybe the week before we find out and they're like, yeah, by the way, next week, be ready. Um, but I don't see it happening like that for a lot of bands.
I could probably see Slipknot doing that. It kind of feels like
Oh yeah,
something they might do, especially with all the kind of buzz that's already been about the album.
that, and I would even. I mean, do we know who the new member is? Have they actually, and like have we pieced together who that person is? I don't ever
I
keep
don't
up with that stuff
I don't
because I
That
remember all the
remember.
was
controversy about that, and like all the controversy because like they weren't necessarily like satisfied with dude's performance and like with the mask stuff, and they're like, yeah, you can't make your own mask, and I was just like, maybe they don't want a lot of. Maybe they're just like, yeah, we're over this whole BS of like we need this big old like schedule of like this is what we have to do to release an album. Maybe they just want to be like, boom, here we go.
so the name Michael Path,
Okay,
Mm, okay.
who's known as New Guy or Tortilla Man.
Yeah, I knew
exactly.
he was
Like
Tortilla Man.
new guy. Are you kidding me? They don't even like that's where like I totally think that it's not that they don't care anymore, because like you can't go to a Slipknot show and say they don't care. They freaking love performing. But I think they're just over kind of the corporate they've been in the game so long. Why do they need to follow those rules anymore?
Hmm.
Like it's a different game now. Um I feel that way about a couple people, about a couple names. Bring Me the Horizon is another great example where I feel like they're just kind of like, yeah, we're on our own terms here. When we want to release, we'll release. We'll let you know. Um,
Well,
so
they're on a whole nother
I
level of being on their terms. They're just like we'll drop whenever we drop, and it'll be whatever genre we want it to be.
That's right.
that. But I mean, Ollie Sykes has Columbia in a vice grip. Like,
Yeah.
Shout out Parkway Drive.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they have to release this year too. I think, aren't they? They are.
I think they are.
Yeah.
But now I think it's what you said earlier. We can't really hold their feet to the fire too much
Yes.
because they're in
Yes.
Australia. So
Yes.
it's not up to them.
Yeah. Yeah. No. There's been a lot. There's. I mean, hey, to be fair, we're speaking from the perspective of the United States, and there's a lot more countries out there
Right.
who have had far more stringent things that they have had to follow. So, I mean, even England, I would give those English artists a little bit of credence to be like, yeah, y'all have it a bit harder than we do over here to get together and get something done. I mean, you kind of just have to travel to another state and spend a little time there to get something done here. Um, which is, I mean, that's the wild thing, is the fact that like we look at the United States as one big country, but it's really just 50 little countries, all kind of like following the same kind of guidelines from the top. But we deviate here and there
Mhm.
on some things. It's so crazy. But yeah. Um, yeah, is there anything else that we wanted to touch upon on this episode of Blast Beats?
Last thing I had was this is going to continue your education, Zach.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Last week I gave you Anthrax
Okay.
to get yourself. This week we're going to give you some death metal that's a little more consumable for you. I'm going to give you Bolt Thrower, Death Metal Legends.
Yes.
If
Okay.
you want, if you want likes on Twitter, just tweet Bolt Thrower. Okay. Now I'm giving you Bolt Thrower for death metal because I think they have one of the more accessible sounds in death metal. So I'm
Okay.
going to give you the Kill Chain and What Dwells Within
Bolt thrower.
for Bolt Thrower.
Chain and what kills within.
What
They
dwells within.
Okay. All right. They also have an essentials playlist on Apple Music, so I might throw that on as well. Hour and 53 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah. That's probably one of my favorite features of Apple Music is, unless you're a very, 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 very new artist and you don't have more than like a project and some singles, they pretty much have an essentials playlist for every artist. They have like the go-to tracks that if you want the general consensus. Now, granted, we just sat here and I would pay. Well, I don't need to pay money. I would love to see what Bring Me the Horizon essential playlist looks like, because that is probably a very eclectic collection of music.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sure.
but yeah, if you want a pretty good feeling of a band, all you have to do is pull up those essential playlists, and then depending on how big the band is, they'll go. There's some that have next steps, which give you like deep cuts and other songs that you should probably hear. They'll give you influences who from like important songs that have from bands before them that have influenced their sound. And depending on how big they are, if you keep going those steps, talking about somebody like Metallica, they'll give you influencers who they have influenced and big bands whose sound they have influenced. So it gets to be very, very like expansive and vast. And we talk about discovering new music. This is how I discover all my new music. I don't listen to radio. I don't really pay attention. I got to give Alan a shout out because
Hmm.
the red herring is just incredible. Um, and I've actually been going to him a lot because of single releases. He has those on lock.
Yeah, he does.
He is able to pick it all up. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting to see how these different companies go about navigating this new world. I mean, radio still holds its place because you can't necessarily stream interviews, and I definitely think that's the wave. Podcasts, what we're doing right now,
Hmm.
is becoming more and more popular. Um, Even radio shows on Apple Music are becoming very popular. So like it's just another podcast, but it's in the same realm. So I'm very interested to see where the radio industry goes. Um, and we covered some music that came out, some music coming out. Um, yeah, it was a fantastic show. As I said, we've been back to back weeks working our hardest to make this a bit more. I think things are starting to even out and keel out a little bit for all of our schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm also going up for a promotion at my job, which means possibly different hours and hopefully something that's a bit more. Well, it also means that I'll 100% be transferred, so I'll be moving stores. So we'll see what happens with that. And new stores means different things. Um, so we'll see what happens with all of that. It has been fantastic to sit and talk with you guys and just speak our minds to our wonderful and awesome listeners. And we thank you for coming in every week to listen that we put this out, and hopefully in the future actually every week, and we're doing a good job. If you're not following us, follow us on Twitter at ATB underscore blast beats. You can follow me at Zachner, ZACHKNERR. Silent K's are a killer. Yeah. Where can they find you, Spoon?
Yeah, you can find me tweeting from the aforementioned Blast Beats account occasionally, or you can find me on my personal account at Spoonful of Sport. And Larry, where can they find you?
You can find me singing the high praises of Matthew Stafford at Radical Larry 007 and also hanging out at Blast Beats Twitter page. Come hang out with us there. Give us recommendations, stuff like that. We'd love
Yeah,
to hear
yeah.
it.
Give us recommendations all day. I not necessarily do the most tweeting on the account, but I see every single I have notifications set up for every single time you guys respond and interact with our content. I will listen to your recommendations. Please give us recommendations. I love listening to new music. And on Matthew Stafford, all in, baby. Let's go. I don't necessarily think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but
Shut up.
all he needs to do is get there. In my book, all he needs to do is get there. But I'm about to put money down on Kansas City beating LA in the Super Bowl. That's definitely Kansas City is even money right now to win the
Nice.
Super Bowl. I think it's actually plus 120. I
Really?
don't know how. I don't know how. I don't. And then on top of that, the only team that has beaten Kansas City this year did LA and Kansas City play this year? I don't think they did.
I don't think so.
No.
Nah.
So the only team that has beaten Kansas City this year, the Cincinnati Bengals, have the worst odds to win the Super Bowl. They're plus 800.
I
Good.
could see that.
So just in case of an upset, probably some pretty good value there
Yeah.
for a little $5 flyer. This isn't a betting podcast, but I'll give you a little bit of advice. I'm not going to put it down. I'm putting all money down on Kansas City because I'm not. I mean, if you watch that game,
Man,
I'm not going to add to the millions of podcasts talking about last weekend as SVP talked about this week. But yes,
that was a hell
it's
of an
been
ending.
fantastic. Oh, hell of an ending, hell of a game. But yeah, we will be back very shortly, talking to you guys soon about all the new stuff. Stay classy, stay awesome. This has been the latest episode of Blast Beats, and we will see you all soon.